Hello and welcome to another episode of Neptune Novelties. Thank you so much for clicking on this podcast, and I hope you enjoy the next minutes that you're here with me. Now this time I thought that I would do something a little different. Well, in this episode we will be talking about romance. However, we will not be talking about only one book, but we're going to talk about a series, a pretty popular one. It's called Chestnut Series, so it's like Chestnut Springs, by Elsie Silver, in which we will be reading about the love life of the Eden brothers. In general, it is pretty much a small-town romance. And so there will be the cowboy characters and one hockey player who is actually an Eden brother as well, not by blood, but by something bigger than blood, which is life. To talk generally, I absolutely did love the entire atmosphere of the Chestnut Springs. All of the books that were interesting on their own, and so are the characters, especially all the cowboy ones. But just like any other series, I do have a most favorite one and a least favorite one. And unfortunately, in this series, I had to skip a book because of one of the characters. I tried, but I just could not get through with it, which I will be talking about more. But I want to talk about them in order, and that order is, if you want to read them, there is a good order. That's better if you read it like that, because the stuff that happen, you want to be aware of them and not be blindsided. Flawless, heartless, powerless, reckless, and hopeless. Those are the titles of the books in the right order. Like I said, since I will be talking about the books in the right order, we're gonna start with the first book, which was Flawless, which followed the love story of Rhett and Summer. Now, first, the plot is, obviously, cowboy, and also kind of an enemies to lovers, but only because it was like a work thing going on. Now, what do I mean by that? So Summer is the daughter of Rhett's agent that made Rhett the successful cowboy that he is. So it's not just his, ranch and his farm and all of that. He's a professional cowboy, which his family doesn't exactly approve of, which was kind of interesting because I did not ever think of a small town family being against their child to be a professional cowboy. Now, in this book, Rhett is actually during the age where it's better that he retires, which he's not okay with. Doesn't matter how much his agents say, doesn't matter how much his family says that. He does not listen, basically. He just thinks about what he wants, and I think Rhett, he found his profession when he needed it the most. So now that he has also been successful at it, he's having a hard time to let go of that. Summer is actually his babysitter for the last season of his career, which he disagrees with both. He's grumpy because he's in his 30s and does not want a babysitter. And like I said, he does not want to quit. But it is Summer's job to make both of those things happen. The Eden family, they're actually really lovely and really close. And you can see how much of a good support system the Eden boys have in their family, while forgetting the fact that they lost their mother very young. And it's just their father and the sons. Now, during that regards, Summer's background was actually more interesting to me than the Eden boys. I think Summer had it more tough, especially because of, well, spoiler alert. Summer's family is basically only his father, who is the agent of Reds. And that's how Summer and Reds meet. I really love the character of Summer. I like how strong and independent she is, and how much of a good relationship she has with her father, especially with the fact that her father is married to someone else and has other kids, who does not make life easier for Summer. But regardless of that, Summer is, like her name, very shiny. She does have a sunshine personality. You could also say that the dynamic of Summer and Reds are sunshine grumpy. And as expected, Summer is way more professional than Reds. And Reds is the one who breaks the barriers without wanting to. But I think Reds and Summer, they were the kind of people that you could actually meet, and from the first glance you could say that something would happen between these two, you know? Even if they do not address it, that energy is there. And I believe that sometimes we are meant to meet some people that are going to shape our lives in a big way. And Reds and Summer, they were that for me. I guess something that I really like about these books is of how much of a mature, kind of grown-up dynamic they have. All of the characters, well, except one, are really control of their lives, I would say, and they are kind of dealing with everything in their lives, and now this door of love is open to them, and we watch them how to deal with that. Also being affected by all of the other things that have happened in their past. They're not foolish about that. They are not, well, they could be foolish in some ways, but not in kind of an immature way. You know, it's very different from reading a book about two high school teenagers, which I'm not saying that's bad, but what I'm saying is that I do like this kind of dynamic more than that. So Red and Summer go on tour for the last season, and it's his last chance of being a champion, which Summer is against it, and he does face some physical problems, unfortunately, because, you know, riding bulls is not exactly an easy lifestyle, especially for your back, which, you know, is Red's entire career, and he started it ever since he was like a teenager. And Summer starts to care about him, and he starts to catch feelings for Summer. Well, they both know it's better that they shouldn't, but you know, you can't fight everything all the time. And in the end, they work it out, of course. Red becomes a champion for the very last time, and Summer is there to support it, and they end up together. as always. It's a happily ever after. And I would say they are probably my #1 favorite couple in this season. I talked about Flawless way more than I actually planned to, so I guess you could say that you could understand how I feel about them. Now moving on to the next book, which is Heartless. And this one was also different from all of the other books that I used to read, and I am on that very same path. Reading this book was new to me, in a way that's not the kind of book that I lean towards really, because it's a single dad trope and it's a single parent and the nanny. The characters are Kate, Red's oldest brother, and Willa, who is Summer's best friend. Kate is cool and collected, Willa is not. She's full of energy and, well, she's kind of really younger than Kate as well. Now Kate has a son, Luke, who's like 6 years old. Kate is in charge of running the family ranch, really, and it is something that he enjoys. But since Luke is growing up, he kind of needs more of a help, especially since he is a single father, and not because of any sort of tragedies, which I really loved. It just gets on my nerves how, like, in all the movies and the books where the mother dies, she's always portrayed as this angel sent from heaven, and you know, she was perfect and she loved everyone, how funny she was, and blah blah blah. And it's just so annoying to me. But I loved how in this book that was not the case at all, because she chose not to deal with having her own child, and she chose not to deal with Kate, and you know, just be on the sidelines to see Luke every year for his like birthday, or sending Christmas gifts and all of that, and genuinely showing that not everyone's a saint, especially since they choose to leave. Now the timeline for Willa and Kate is actually way more fast forwarded than the one for Red and Summer. Their love story starts when Willa moves to the ranch for the summer, and well, Kate is looking for a nanny for Luke, and actually their first interaction is so funny, and I'm gonna say it because it was just so good and inappropriate, of course. They actually meet at the coffee shop of the small town, where Willa's underwear falls out of her purse, and Kate catches that and gives it back to her, and that's that. And then the second time that they meet, they realize who they are. Willa is really funny. She was kind of, well, Summer, she is really special to me, but Willa, I love how wild she was. And she has a good family. She has an older brother, and she's the daughter of a rock star and a sex therapist. So you could imagine what kind of an energy she could bring to the table, and how opposite of Kate she is. And while their love story is shaped by all of that, regardless of how much that's not the kind of book that I would follow and look for, I'm happy that I did, because the love story of Kate and Willa was so interesting, and Luke was really sweet. I really liked him. Well, they're proof of opposites attract. The third book in the series is cold, powerless. And I am really upset to say that I did not finish this book at all, and I could not read it at all. And I'm really mad about that because it's the story of Jasper, who is the eaten boy not by blood. Actually, the Eden family found him when he was, really young and was drawn out of his house. And I'm glad that Eden boys found him. And Jasper, I would say he's my favorite Eden boy, even though he's not exactly an Eden boy. And the only reason that I had to skip this book, I really tried. I read like 40 pages. And after that, I just could not take it anymore. And it was all because of Sloane. She is so annoying. And so much in that victim mindset that even thinking about her drives me mad. And I hate how Jasper was stuck with that kind of character. So they're like childhood best friends to lovers. That's supposed to be the plot. And they would kind of be cousins because Sloane is the cousin of Eden boys. And she's from this glamorous class apparently, and she's a ballet dancer, and Jasper is the actually hockey player, which is the kind of character that I look for in books, sporty romance. But regardless of how much love I have for Jasper and how much he is exactly the type of character that I would look for everywhere, I had to skip it because of how bad Sloane was. And I could not name one thing about that girl that I could get along with. Jasper was wasted on her, and that's all I could say. This book is Reckless, which is the story of Theo and Winter. Now, who are Theo and Winter? Theo is Rhett's number 2. He's the famous new young bull rider. Winter is, ironically, Summer's stepsister. Which means that is another book that I did not finish. With this, I tried for like 20 pages. But, you could see a glimpse of Theo and Winter in the previous books. And I saw that, and I realized that I do not want to see that. Winter, again, I do not like her character one bit. Especially because of how mean she is, and again, she's very much stuck in a toxic marriage with Summer's ex-boyfriend, who was a horrible person to Summer. So even the very fact that Winter started dating him, that's not cool. Theo is just not that interesting of a character to me. I like the way that he's supportive and he has a lot of love to give. And I liked him as a side character in the books. But I did not bring myself to reading specifically about him, which is kind of mean, but I'm sorry, Theo, I tried. And your taste is not good at all, because you could have done so much better than Winter. The last book is Hopeless, where we read about Bo, Ethan, and Bailey. So Cade is the oldest Eden boy, then there is Bo and Jasper, they're kind of best friends. And well, Rich was the youngest son. Now Bo is this very put together, cheeky, handsome Ethan, and he is actually in the military. From the looks of it, Bo is the most collected and very much in control in his life than all of the other Eton boys. Now in this book, he is injured and sent back to the Chestnut Springs. Now who is Bailey? Bailey is the daughter of a very bad family in the town. She has brothers. Even though she does have brothers, it was very much better if she did not have a family at all, because and it's not just like psychologically damaging, but they are also the bad people of the town. Because they are thieves and, on the wrong path of life. Well, Bailey is not like that. She started bartending at the only bar in the town ever since she was 16, and she's very detached and different from all of the other members of her family. Now, Bailey and Bo are also childhood friends. Bailey is the only member of that family which is okay with the Eden boys, and they all feel bad for her, and even though she's different from other members of her family, she still has a bad reputation because she's still a member of that family, which is so unfair because, it's just upset to see how different you are from some people, but because of how you were once associated with them, you're judged. And I'm a city girl. I don't exactly get how much of a torture that could be in a small town, but reading about it made me feel bad about Bailey. Now after Jasper, Bo is my favorite boy. And he is probably the biggest gentleman of all in this series. And Bailey, she is finding for ways to escape the town because of everything that I said. And Bo is confused about what he wants to do next in his life because he cannot go back. Not because he doesn't just want to, but so in their book, you are not only seeing a love story being formed, but two people finding other ways in their lives different from the one that they've had. Bailey is in her 20s and Bo is in his 30s. Bo is so different from his brothers, and the place that he lives has a different decor, and you could think that because of how different a life path he chose, he would be fine with the way his life is now, but that is not the case. So the plot is actually fake dating as well, because it could save Bailey's reputation and keep Bo's family off their back, because he does not want to talk about what happened when he got injured when he was on a mission. And he is struggling with being the hero that he actually is, and not just because of what he did in that mission, but in his life he's just such a hero, but he does not give himself credit enough. Even though their book has the third place for me, like I said, Bo is my number 2 favorite reading boy, and I did enjoy reading the love story and how everything unfolded at the end, how they both found a new good life path for the next years of their lives and the love that they both deserve. Now, do I think Bo could do better? Yes. But do I dislike Bailey? No. Well, that is all for today. Thank you so much for listening. This was such a long episode, but it was only because we talked about a series. But I add a popular one. I did enjoy reading the series, and if all of the things that I talked about are things that you could find interesting, I do advise you to read them as well. And if you are an author and would like me to review your book, you can always contact me through email. Again, thank you so much, and I wish you all sorts of magic and fairy tales. Later.